Welcome everyone to Starry Skies, our monthly astronomy magazine program where we tell you all about what's going on up there in the skies. I'm Mark Hardaker.
And I'm Steve Tonkin.
And this month we're going to be taking you through the sights of the sky in August. We're going to be talking this month about the planets.
Indeed.
And the Perseid meteors, Steve.
Ah, that's a real treat. Celestial fireworks.
Yeah, as well as, of course, our usual constellation of the month, which we'll come to towards the end of the show. So, hope you're all strapped in, and away we go. We're going to start with the planets for August. So, let's imagine that you're outside. It's a lovely August evening, somewhere around about mid-month, right? 12th, 13th. So, the sun is now starting to get lower in the sky. We're past midsummer, aren't we?
Yes. Oh, yeah, quite a way past midsummer. We actually have proper darkness now, which is great.
Yeah. So astronomical twilight has returned. So the sun is setting in the west, as it usually does. But in mid-month, very soon after it sets, down will also go the planet Mercury. So we won't see Mercury at all in August this month. And it's followed very soon after by Venus, which has been a delight, hasn't it?
Oh, it's so bright. It's the brightest thing in the sky, apart from the sun, actually, would you believe?
Yep. But unfortunately, Venus is passing between us and the sun right now, and it will actually pass right in front of the sun, or almost in front of the sun, in the next couple of weeks, and re-emerge then in the morning sky. So by the end of the month of August, we should just be able to see it low in the east. Those travelling across the forest in the morning, across the A31, will be able to see brilliant Venus rising in the morning sky from about the last week of August.
Yeah, and because it's closest to us at this time, then what it means, if you've got really pretty decent binoculars or something, you look at it, you'll see it's actually got a phase. It's a crescent, like a crescent moon.
Yep.
It's absolutely delightful.
Yep. Yeah, and of course it will become brighter and brighter through September and October. It will get higher and higher in the sky, in the morning sky. So whereas it's been lovely in the evening sky, it's going to be lovely in the morning sky through the rest of the year. So it's actually not much fun for planets right now. We've got Mercury not visible. We also got Mars that's not visible because it is similar to Venus. It's going close to the sun right now, so it will set soon after the sun. Only in this case, Mars has gone behind the sun, not in front of it. So it's getting fainter and fainter and further away, and we will not actually see Mars until it returns to the morning sky in March of next year. So say goodbye to Mars, eh?
I think so. But what we do have is everybody's favourite planet just coming into view.
Which is that?
Which is Saturn. It's one of the wow count planets, isn't it?
Absolutely. Every
Every time you see it. You really do need a small telescope, though, to appreciate the rings on it.
Yeah. So opposition. What's opposition? So Saturn reaches opposition on the 27th of August. What does opposition mean?
That means that the Sun and then Earth and then Saturn are in, as near as makes no difference, a straight line.
So that means then if I'm looking out at midnight, let me just get this right. Is this right? So I'm looking out at midnight. That means the sun is low in the north. That means Saturn is very high in the south. That's right. As high as it can get in the south. Yes,
as high as it will get at the moment. It's actually still quite low in the sky, though, because it's in part of the constellation that doesn't actually rise that much. So.
Right. But the best time to see it will be all the way through August, September into October. Saturn, I think, is in the constellation of Aquarius right now.
It is, right? It is, yes.
Yeah. And it's actually a little bit dimmer than it was last year. Last year, 2022, Saturn was relatively bright. This year, it's slightly fainter, and the reason for that is that its rings, which are normally wide or often wide open, are narrowing down. That means that the tilt of the rings to the Earth is narrowing. So instead of looking like big rings around Saturn, they're getting thinner and thinner, looking more like a line.
Well, ultimately, it'll look like a line, yes. Galileo actually thought the rings had disappeared with his not very good telescope.
And we will think that as well. In 2025, we will, when we get our telescopes out in a year or so, the rings will disappear as the ring plane tilts to being at 0 degrees to the Earth.
Where it's in line with the Earth. So, yes.
Yeah. So now's the time to go and have a look. Get your small telescopes out. As Steve says, though, binoculars not really good for the rings, are they?
No. You need to be really, to make sure of seeing them, you need to be magnifying at least about 35 times. Most binoculars don't do that. And if they do, they need to be mounted like a telescope anyway. So you might as well get a telescope.
So a nice telescope, a 4-inch, 6-inch telescope pointed at Saturn. Way to find it is, as we just mentioned, look south, low in the south, around mid-month, around midnight. You will see Saturn rising, though, a little earlier in the evening. It rises about 9 or 10 o'clock. As soon as it gets dark, you'll see it in the southeast, and it will transit then through south and set about 3 or 4 in the morning. So just after Saturn, so Saturn rises about nightfall during August. Next up, guess what, is the giant planet?
Oh, yes, the one that is more than twice as big as all the other planets in the solar system put together. That is Jupiter.
It is indeed. And we can't miss Jupiter, because although Jupiter will not come to opposition until, I think, sometime in September. Am I right in thinking
September or October, I can't remember.
We'll come back to you on that one.
Oh, yeah.
We'll come back to you on that. But Jupiter, you can't miss it also now. So if you look out around 11:30 in the evening during the month of August, you will see brilliant Jupiter rising in the east. And by midnight, it will be getting pretty close to south, so it'll be southeast, and again, much brighter than Saturn. Saturn looks like a regular bright star, but Jupiter is brilliant, cannot be missed. You really can't miss it, as it's going to be at its best during the month of September. And if again, with a telescope, you can see the moons very easily, also with binoculars. The 4 so-called Galilean moons, and with a slightly larger telescope you can see the bands and the belts and even the great red spot which circulates in Jupiter's atmosphere.
Well, the other thing to look for mid-month when you're looking at Saturn, actually on the 27th, is an asteroid that we very rarely see. And that's the asteroid Flora.
What's an asteroid?
An asteroid is it's basically they're parts of a failed planet.
Failed planet?
Yeah, they never actually got enough of them together. So to make a planet, in fact, all the asteroids put together would be smaller than the moon. So, but they're these rocks that orbit the sun. Some of them come quite close to Earth. Some of them, well, one of them actually impacted Earth 66 million years ago and took out the dinosaurs. But no, this one is asteroid Flora, and the time to look for it actually is when Saturn's at opposition. We'll put this on the fan page. The asteroid Flora will be at opposition, so it'll be right next to Saturn, so you can have a look then.
Now, Flora is not visible with the naked eye.
No,
we need binoculars to find it, and what we'll do, we'll put a little finder chart on that will show you where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think are we still recording? Yes, we are. There we go. Yeah. So, let's start that again. We'll put a finder chart up for you to find Flora. You'll definitely need binoculars to do so. But when you think that that's a tiny little bit of rock, maybe a couple of dozen kilometres or miles across, floating out there, and you can still see that moving with your binoculars. Yeah.
Yep. You can watch it night to night, and you'll see that it moves. Yep. It looks like a little star.
Yep. The other planets, so we've got Uranus and Neptune, both of which are getting better in the sky, but I think we'll handle those two next month. Let's have a little bit of a segment about Uranus and Neptune. They're fascinating planets. They're not really much to see with binoculars or telescopes, to be fair. But because of that, they don't really get much press, do they?
No, and they're I like to look at them. They're the ice giants.
Yes, they are, and they're the next planets out from Saturn. So Uranus is next out, and then Neptune, and of course thereafter is the former planet Pluto. Let's talk about Pluto next month, shall we? The outer planets, including the outer not planet, which is Pluto. That caused such a rumpus in the astronomical world when it was demoted, like Leeds United, down into the next division.
Well, you see, you can see it like that. I see it was actually promoted. It became the first member of its own class of bodies, so called Plutoids.
Plutoid. Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, let's talk about the meteors, shall we? Let's talk about the Perseid meteors. So we finished with the solar system, apart from meteors, which are also orbiting the sun. So what's a meteor shower? We read about that's in the Daily Mail or the Daily Express. Massive meteor shower coming. Is that what the Perseids are, Steve?
No, it's not. These are always overhyped. Just about anything they tell you in most press about meteor showers gives rise to what the Viz comic magazine called little article on the disappointeds, because you will be disappointed if you believe that. You will get, if you're lucky, sort of maybe you'll see maybe 30 an hour, but there's these bright shooting stars, and they are actually just little specks of like grains of sand. They come from the tail of a comet, which is dust, and as the Earth travels through that dust tail, these things enter the atmosphere. They compress the air in front of them as they're coming in at something about 20,000 miles an hour or something like that sort of speed. And that heats up that air, and it causes them to ablate, which means that they turn immediately to an ionized gas. They don't melt, and that ionized gas glows, and you see this trail, which is the meteor trail. It's a free fireworks show.
It is. And again, please, dear listeners, imagine that when we talk about the meteor shower, like Steve says, we're going to get one every minute or one every 2 minutes at most. And the way to see them is get yourself nice and comfortable, get wrapped up, go out on the night of the 12th and 13th of August. So put a date in your diary to do that now. 12th is a Saturday into Sunday, so you can actually go out and have dinner, have a nice bottle of wine, come back and watch the meteors. Set yourself out in a dark sky area, as dark as possible, back garden, shielded from lights. Take a deck chair with you, that's also nice and comfortable, and wrap up well, because it gets quite chilly later, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's never warm at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so we don't have to be out till 2, but certainly the later the better. If you start around midnight and have an hour between midnight and 1, you'll see definitely see some meteors. But from 1 till 2, you'll see more, as the radiant of this shower, the Perseid shower, gets higher in the sky. So radiant.
Well, tell us what a radiant is, then, Mark.
A radiant is. Imagine if you were looking upwards at a rain shower, so the rain is coming down from above. It would appear to you that the raindrops were coming from a point of light in the sky, and it's the same with meteors. It looks like all these meteors are radiating from a point just inside the constellation of Perseus, hence the name the Perseid meteors. But the best view is not to look at the radiant, because the radiant itself is the meteor trails near the radiant are small.
That's because they're coming almost head on to you.
That's it. They're coming straight at us, aren't they? So we need to look to the side a bit. So I always reckon that if you set your deck chair looking east or southeast, let your head tip back so you're looking 45 degrees or higher in the sky, and let your eyes freely open up and looking in all directions at the same time, and then suddenly you'll see these bright flashes as the meteors enter the Earth's atmosphere above us.
Indeed. And if you're with a group of people, you can have what we sometimes call a Perseids party, and you don't all face in the same direction. You can sit round in a circle, and some people will see meteors that others don't see.
Yes.
But look as high as you can in the sky, because that's where the sky's clearest. It's also where it's furthest away from light pollution on the horizon, so you get to see even the fainter ones when you're looking up high in the sky.
It's interesting that the Perseids are actually the remnants, the debris left behind from a comet called Comet 109P Swift-Tuttle. Swift-Tuttle. It was discovered in 1862 by Mr. Swift and Mr. Tuttle in America. And it returns to the area of the Earth about once every 133 years. But the dust and particles that the comet has emitted as it's travelled around are still in the orbit, and we cross that orbit on the 12th of August every year. That's why we see the meteors, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think it's the second best shower of the year.
Yep.
I think the best one is actually, well, we'll come to later in the year, which is the Geminids in December. But not so many people see that because it's cold.
Yeah, that's around the 10th or 11th of December.
Yeah, the 12th, yeah.
And I've tried to watch that as well. I get very, very cold outside. So for me, the August Perseids are the best. Anyway, what we're going to do is post on the fan page and on the Fordingbridge Astronomers website. We're going to post an observing form. If you want to be a little bit more serious about observing the Perseids, you can note where each one comes from and how many you see in a minute or in an hour, and you can actually send these forms back to the astronomical societies, and they will record them and send them up for compilation with all the others. It's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and you don't have to wait until the 12th to see them, because the shower's actually started. It's not very strong at the moment, so you might get... Well, I've actually caught on my Meteor camera. So far this season, I've caught 3 Perseids so far.
Yeah.
But that's since the 17th of July. So
yeah, and that shows you that this trail of debris in the sky is really quite wide from the comet, and so although we hit the peak on the 12th, 13th of August, you can see them really any time from now, which is the first week of August, until into the second week of August. Good. So that's meters. I hope you enjoy that shower, because it's great. Let us know at Forest FM or on our websites. Tell us if you're successful seeing them.
Yeah. Right. So constellation of the month, then, Mark.
Constellation of the month. This has got to be one of my favourites and one of the most easily recognised constellations in the sky, and that's the constellation of Cygnus, the Swan, which is also sometimes called the Northern Cross.
Yeah.
And Cygnus is one of those original 48 constellations that was listed in the 2nd century by the Egyptian astronomer Ptolemy. So it's really quite prominent and quite obvious in the sky. You can't miss it. So what we want you to do is go out mid-month, look up south, almost overhead, and you can see the unmistakable cross-like shape of Cygnus.
Yeah. And then have a look at it in binoculars and be prepared to be knocked out by what you see, because it's right in the thick of the Milky Way, and you will see the Milky Way as Galileo did, this whole sea of stars. Absolutely gorgeous, and you can start then looking for other things in it as well.
Yeah, and the shape, even the cross shape of Cygnus, it's so apparent that the neck is where you have how do you say it?
I call it albareo. Other people call it albareo. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The only people who will not understand what you say, whether you call it albareo, whatever, are those people who make an occupation of being awkward. Yeah. Everybody else will understand. So don't worry about mispronouncing star names, because nobody misunderstands.
So that's the star name that's at the head of the swan,
It
right?
is, yeah.
And at the opposite end of the bird is the star Deneb, which is a beautiful, brilliant blue-white star. And that is several thousand light years away, extremely bright. Yeah. And they mark out the head and the tail of the bird, and then the little stubby wings come out to the left and right.
Yeah, well, the name Deneb actually means tail.
Yep.
And there's lots of stars with Deneb in it, like Denebola and Deneb alcatus and things like that, and they're all the tail of the mythological creature that it is. There's another lovely star, and it's the next bright one down in the middle of the cross, and that's Sada, but that's sometimes called the heart of the swan. But if you look at that in binoculars, you'll see there's actually a little heart-shaped group of slightly brighter stars. So you've got the heart is actually a heart there if you care to look for
Isn't
it.
that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And said that is Gamma Cygni. Is that right, Steve? Am I right in thinking it's Gamma?
I think you're right.
I think it's right.
We can always check.
You know that we astronomers we use the Greek alphabet for the brightest stars. So Deneb, being the brightest star, is Alpha Cygni. Albiro is Beta Cygni because it's the second brightest star, and I think the one at the heart is Gamma. Am I right in thinking that?
You are indeed.
There we go. We see that's all right there. So don't forget also, if you're when you're looking up at Cygnus and you see the cross in the sky, you will also see the famous summer triangle.
Yeah. And what is that then, Mark?
So summer triangle, we've got three very bright stars that form a triangle in the sky, more or less overhead. The two brightest overhead are Deneb in Cygnus. We have Vega in the constellation of Lyra, to its right as you're looking at the sky. And below them both is the bright star Altair in the constellation of Aquila the Eagle.
Yeah.
And these stars will be with us all the way through the summer. It's called the Summer Triangle here in the Northern Hemisphere. And we see them high in the sky. They'll be with us until at least October or November, so you can't miss them. And they're a good marker for, when the summer is coming to the end, the triangle dips into the west and our cold winter nights return.
And it's worth scanning around there. Now, Altair you can easily recognise because it's got two companion stars, a slightly fainter one on either side.
Yep.
But just a little bit closer to Altair than to Vega, but on a line between them, if you scan that area of the sky, you will see something which officially is known as Brocchi's cluster. But it looks like a coat hanger. So it's a lovely little thing to look at particularly if you're showing children the night sky. Easily visible in binoculars is this little cluster, and it's been known as a cluster since before people used optical instruments there as well.
Yeah, and I think if you look on our Fordingbridge Astronomers website, our friend Martin Davis posted a picture of the coat hanger asterism just a few weeks ago, back in mid-July, I think.
He did,
have a look
yes,
there.
yeah.
That's the picture he took with it. So what else do we have? Well, let's just talk a bit about Beta, shall we? About the double star.
It's one of the most beautiful sights in the sky if you want to see gold and sapphire together. So if you ever thought all stars are the same colour, this star, Albireo, call it what you like, Beta Cygni, is this. It's a double star, is two stars that appear to be close together. These ones actually aren't. They're not related to each other at all. It's just a line of sight phenomenon. Remember, you're looking at something that's in 3 dimensions, and so you've got this brilliant, bright, golden-coloured star, and then next to it, and it may actually look green to you, but that's an optical illusion because of the golden red or golden colour of the brighter star, is this sapphire blue one. It's just absolutely beautiful. You can manage it in binoculars, but it's much, much easier in a small telescope.
Yeah.
It'll separate them more.
Yeah. I was looking at it just the other evening. I had my 15 by 70 binoculars, so that's fairly high magnification, and you can just break the star into the pair. You can see it's a double star, but as Steve said, I think a telescope is better than binoculars for Albireo.
I think you really want to be magnifying sort of round about 25, 30 times minimum to get.
That's right, yeah.
To really enjoy it.
Cygnus is also a home to two of Mr. Messier's fuzzy objects, isn't it?
Ah, yes, the non-comets, the things not to bother to look at because they're not comets.
We told you, I think, last month or the month before about Mr. Charles Messier. Charles Messier lived in Paris in the mid-1700s, and he was looking for comets. And every time he found something in the sky that was a fuzzy blob, he noted it down in his book saying, this is not a comet. And he assembled a list of 110 eventually, but I think it's really 102 is better, somewhat added later, of these objects that were not comets. And there are two of these not comets in Cygnus.
Yes, number 29 and number 39 in his catalogue.
Yeah, and they're both open clusters of stars.
Yeah.
These are stars that formed together from a gas cloud over the millions of years, and the stars are shining brightly. But both of these clusters, of course, are in the thick of the Milky Way, Steve.
Yeah, so they can be quite difficult to distinguish.
Yeah.
But when you're looking for them, you'll also notice that there's dark patches. In fact, the Milky Way appears to divide into two. And it looks, and it looks like, you know, that there's gaps in it, and it's not gaps at all. For years, people thought this was gaps in the stars. It's not. It's actually foreground dust. So it's basically soot and sand in the way,
obscuring
the view. Yeah,
right. But really, take your binoculars and scan all the way through. You can spend hours looking at Cygnus because it's peppered with stars. It's thick with stars. And again, to find these two Messier objects, M39 and M27, they're easy to find, but they're lost amongst the stars. Yeah. Have a look on our map. We'll put that on the Forest FM fan page, and you'll see a map of Cygnus, and both those clusters are marked up there. What else have we got in Cygnus then? We've got variable stars.
We've got variable stars. Chi Cygni. You're the variable star person.
Yes, that's part of my. I like watching variable stars. They're easy to follow with binoculars, also, so you don't need a big telescope. And one of my favourites that I observe whenever I'm out there is Chi Cygni. Chi is, of course, a Greek letter, number 18 or so in the Greek alphabet, so it's quite a faint star. And Chi Cygni fades from a quite respectable, bright 3.3 magnitude. That's a dim-ish sort of medium star. But it fades all the way down till it's not even visible in my 12-inch telescope. It goes down to magnitude 14, which is very, very dim indeed. And it does that, on average, every 408 days. So you can watch it getting brighter and then watch it slowly fading away. It's a massive red giant star, and it throbs. It throbs, it does. It throbs. The brightness of the star is caused by the star physically swelling and then contracting and vibrating, if you will, and getting brighter and darker. So that's one of my favourite variable stars. I like to watch that and send the results in. But there's another one there that's a bit more tricky, but this is called SS Cygni.
Yeah, now you can always tell if a star designation, if it's two uppercase letters, in this case SS, then that is an indication that it is a star that varies in brightness.
Yeah. So SS, SW, SU,
RU,
all these are variable stars, and SS in Cygni is a lovely one. It's too dim to see with binoculars or even a small telescope. You need a decent-sized telescope to see this one. But it's fascinating. Why? Because SS Cygni is really two stars very, very close together. One of them is a red dwarf, so it's a small, compact red star, and it's in orbit around, or probably orbiting around each other, around a white dwarf, which is an extremely compact, collapsed star, and the two orbit within 100,000 miles of each other very quickly, every 6 hours. So that's a very, very close, almost tumbling around each other. And you can imagine this causes some tumult in the nearby, the sky around it. And what happens is the white dwarf is pulling material off the red star, and that's collapsing and forming a disk around the stars, and that disk is then been impacted by incoming material, and the star flashes about every 6 to 8 weeks. It trebles or quadruples its brightness, and flashes for about 4 or 5 days, and then disappears back to its former magnitude. Now, SS is normally about magnitude 11, so you're going to need at least a 5 or 6 inch telescope to see it. But when it brightens to about magnitude 8, which is visible in binoculars. Yeah. But we thought we'd mention it today for interest. It's not something that you can easily find in the sky, to be honest, but it's an interesting star.
Yeah, and if you want to find out more about these things, then you should visit one of your local astronomy societies There's the Wessex Astronomical Society, and the Wessex meets on the first Tuesday of every month at the Allendale Centre in Wimborne, and there's Fordingbridge Astronomers meets on the third Wednesday at the Elm Tree, in the barn at the Elm Tree in Ringwood.
And we will be meeting in Fordingbridge on the 16th of August. It's an informal social meeting this month. We don't have a formal speaker. Unfortunately, we've just missed the Wessex one because that was on the 1st of August, so we've missed that, I'm afraid, for this month. But both astronomical societies will for sure be doing something for the Perseids. I'm sure we will. Just keep your eyes on the websites, and we'll notify you on the Forest FM fan page as well as to where we will assemble. So, again, if it's nice weather, a warm evening, there is nothing better than a few Perseid meteors to keep us all happy.
Indeed.
So we look forward to seeing you for September's Starry Skies. Until then, that's Mark Hardaker
and Steve Tonkin wishing you very, very clear, very, very dark skies.